Before we begin, if you're someone who believes that relationships are simple, predictable, easy to define, this story might change your mind. And if you enjoy deep, emotional, real-life stories that stay with you long after they end, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Because this one, it's not just a story, it's a feeling you won't forget. I never imagined that my relationship with my mother-in-law would become something I'd struggle to explain even to myself. When I married Ethan 3 years ago, I thought I knew exactly what kind of dynamic I was signing up for. His mother, Patricia, was exactly what you'd expect. Polite, well-mannered, slightly reserved, the kind of woman who smiles warmly but never lets you step too far into her world. And honestly, I was okay with that for the first couple of years. Our relationship stayed comfortably distant. We met during holidays, exchanged thoughtful gifts, shared dinners filled with safe conversations, weather, work, small family updates, nothing too deep, nothing too personal, just enough connection to call it good. Then everything changed. Ethan got a new job opportunity in another city. It was the kind of offer you don't say no to, but accepting it meant leaving behind everything familiar, our routines, our friends, even those occasional family dinners with Patricia. The first few months were difficult. New place, new rhythm, a strange kind of quiet that settles in when life resets itself. But slowly, we adjusted. We built a new routine, found our favorite coffee spot, turned a house into something that felt like home, and just when things started feeling stable again, Patricia called. "I'm thinking of coming to stay for a couple of weeks," she said. Ethan lit up immediately. He missed her more than he admitted. And me? I realized I actually didn't mind the idea either. Somewhere along the way, my feelings toward her had softened. She wasn't just Ethan's mom anymore. She was familiar, but when she arrived, something felt different, subtle, but noticeable. She looked tired, not just physically but deeply, quietly exhausted, the kind of fatigue that doesn't go away with sleep. Her movements were slower, her smile still there but slightly dimmed. Just getting older. She laughed when I asked, but something about that answer didn't sit right with me. So I started paying attention. One afternoon, Ethan had already left for work. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up, when she walked in. Soft footsteps, gentle presence. "Emily," she said quietly. I turned. There was something in her voice, something vulnerable. "Would you mind giving me a quick massage?" "Just my shoulders. They've been really tight lately." For a second, I froze. Not because it was inappropriate, but because it was unexpected. We had never crossed into that kind of closeness. Not once, but I smiled anyway. Of course. We moved to the living room. She sat down, leaning forward slightly. I grabbed some oil, warmed it between my hands, and began slowly, carefully. A tea first. It felt normal, just a simple act of kindness. But then she exhaled deeply, like she had been holding something in for far too long. "You have good hands," she murmured. I laughed lightly. "I'm not trained or anything." But she shook her head. "No, it's not that." And somehow the room felt quieter after that. As I worked through the tension in her shoulders, something shifted. Not physically, emotionally. She began to talk. At first, just small things, memories, fragments of her past. But then, deeper, she told me about her life before Ethan, about losing her husband, about raising a child alone, carrying the weight of being both mother and father. At the same time, she spoke about nights filled with doubt, moments where she wondered if she was enough, if she was doing it right, if she was failing, quietly. And I realized this wasn't just a massage. This was release. Not of muscle tension, but of years of silence. I had never seen her like this before. Not composed, not distant, but human, fragile, honest, open in a way that felt almost sacred. And for the first time, I didn't see her as my mother-in-law. I saw her as a woman who had carried too much for too long. When I finally stopped, she leaned back slowly, her eyes slightly glassy. "Thank you," she said, then after a pause, "not just for this, but for listening." I swallowed something I couldn't quite name. "Your family," I replied, and for the first time it didn't feel like something I was supposed to say. It felt real. When Ethan came home, he noticed immediately. "You look different," he said to her, "like you just came from a spa." She smiled. "Emily gave me a massage. The best one I've had in years." He laughed. But I didn't. Because I knew it wasn't just about the massage. After that day, everything changed. Subtly. Naturally. But undeniably. She started spending more time with me. We went on walks together, sat quietly with coffee, worked on small things in the kitchen. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't, but even silence felt shared, comfortable, like something had finally opened between us, something that had been waiting all along. But a few days later, something happened. Something small. A single sentence. That shifted everything. We were folding laundry together when she paused and said, "Emily, can I tell you something that might sound strange?" I looked up, and for the first time since she arrived, I felt something I couldn't explain. Not fear. Not discomfort. Just a quiet sense that whatever she was about to say would change how I saw everything. The room felt still, not silent but heavy, like the air itself was waiting. Patricia didn't look at me immediately. Her hands continued folding the towel in front of her, slowly, carefully, as if she was choosing her words with precision. Then she said it. "Emily, that massage you gave me." She paused. I felt my chest tighten, just slightly. "It meant more to me than you think." I tried to smile, keeping things light. "I'm glad it helped. You seemed really tense." But she shook her head. "No, not just physically." Now she looked at me, and there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not sadness. Not exactly. It was deeper than that. "Sometimes," she continued softly, "when you reach a certain age, people stop seeing you." Her voice didn't crack, but it carried weight. Not in a cruel way, not intentionally. "It just happens." I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. "You become background," she said, still there, but not really noticed. Each word landed carefully. "And that moment, when you were there, just present with me." She inhaled slowly. I felt seen. Again. Her words stayed in the air long after she stopped speaking. I didn't know what to say. There are moments when comfort feels too small for what someone is sharing. So instead I reached for her hand. "You're not invisible to us," I said gently. "To Ethan." "To me?" She nodded. "I know," she whispered. Then, almost immediately, "But it's different." That word different it echoed louder than everything else. After that conversation something shifted. Not dramatically. Not in a way anyone else would notice. But I did. She became more affectionate, more expressive, more present in my space. She would hug me longer than before, call me sweetheart instead of Emily, thank me for things that didn't need thanking. At first it felt nice, warm, like the kind of connection people talk about but rarely experience with in-laws. But slowly, very slowly, something else crept in, something harder to define. It started with the way she looked at me. Not constantly, not obviously, but enough. Her gaze would linger just a second too long. When I spoke, she didn't just listen, she observed. Studied. As if she was trying to memorize something. Once, while I was laughing at something on my phone, I looked up and caught her staring, not in a judgmental way, but intensely, softly, almost emotionally. "You're the kind of person," she said quietly, "I wish I had in my life when I was your age." I laughed it off, but inside something shifted again. I told myself I was overthinking. She's just lonely. She's opening up. She trusts you. That's all. That has to be all. But the human mind, it notices patterns before we're ready to accept them. And mine was starting to connect dots I wasn't comfortable with. A few mornings later, I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee. The sunlight was soft. Everything felt normal. Until she walked in. "Emily," she said gently. I turned. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." There was a small pause. "Then would you give me another massage today?" I hesitated, just for a second. "Your shoulders again?" I asked, trying to keep things casual. She shook her head. "No." Her voice lowered slightly. "My lower back." This time. Something about the way she said it made the room feel different. Not wrong, but heavier. Still, I nodded. "Okay." We went through the same steps, same room, same oil, same quiet atmosphere, but it didn't feel the same, not even close. This time she didn't talk. No stories. No memories, just silence. Her breathing, slow, controlled, and the more I worked, the more aware I became of the distance between us, of the closeness between us, of every movement, every second. It felt longer than before, even though it probably wasn't. There are moments in life where nothing inappropriate happens, but something still feels off, not because of actions, but because of energy. And this was one of those moments. I stayed professional, careful, focused, but internally I was counting the minutes. When I finally finished, I stepped back immediately. "I hope that helped," I said quickly. She slowly turned her head, looked at me. "It did," she said softly. Then after a pause, "You always know how to make people feel better." That night I couldn't shake the feeling that it stayed with me. Quiet, persistent. So when Ethan sat beside me, I said something. Not everything. Just enough. "I feel a little overwhelmed," I admitted. He looked concerned. "With Mom?" I nodded slightly. "She's just been very emotional. I think maybe she needs a change of environment. Maybe we should take her out somewhere tomorrow." He didn't question it. "Yeah," he said. "That's a good idea." The next day we went to a botanical garden, and something incredible happened. The tension dissolved. The air felt lighter. Patricia walked ahead of us, smiling, taking photos, talking to strangers, laughing in a way I hadn't heard before. It was like watching someone remember who they used to be, and for a moment everything felt normal again. That night she packed her suitcase. Her visit was coming to an end. And when it was time to say goodbye, she hugged me tightly, longer than usual. Then she whispered, "Thank you for everything." I didn't respond immediately, because I wasn't sure what everything meant anymore. When the door closed behind her, the house felt quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet as before. This one carried thoughts, questions, unfinished emotions. Over the next few days, I replayed everything in my mind, every conversation, every look, every moment, trying to understand it, trying to define it. But some things don't fit into clear categories. A week later, a letter arrived, handwritten, from Patricia. Inside, she wrote, "I've never felt so respected, so cared for, as I did in your home." Then another line, one that made me pause. "Thank you for your time, your kindness, and your presence." Presence. That word again. And suddenly everything clicked. It was never about the massage. Not really. Not the touch. Not the physical closeness. It was about something far deeper. She wasn't crossing a line. She was reaching for connection, for recognition, for a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, being seen, being valued, being important to someone again. And somehow I had become that person. She still visits, but now things are different, clearer, healthier. We set boundaries without ever having to say the word boundaries. We bake together, go shopping.do, puzzles. Ethan is there more often, and the dynamic feels balanced, whole, safe. Because sometimes what feels complicated isn't inappropriate, it's just a human heart trying to be seen again.